Hello, welcome to York Festival of Ideas. Today, we're very happy because we have a presentation that is called Subtle is the New Loud, Digital Autonomy. This presentation will be held by Dr. Chrysopigi Vardikou. Dr. Chrysopigi Vardikou is an experienced academic and marketing strategist specializing in the intersection of digital marketing, cognitive psychology, and online consumer behavior. She is a lecturer at the University of York Europe campus, where she teaches marketing modules at the postgraduate level. Additionally, she has served as a guest lecturer at the Department of Digital Media and Communication at the Ionian University in Kefalonia, Greece. Chrysopigi holds a PhD from the Ionian University and a Master of Science in Cognitive Psychology from Aristotle University of Thessaloniki in Greece. She also holds an MBA with a specialization in marketing from the University of Macedonia in Greece. Chrysopigi possesses 15 years of industry experience. In 2021, she established the consultancy firm Alt&Q and corporate training. Her previous tenure includes strategic roles as an in-house marketing manager in the automotive sector and in an e-commerce agency, and she has worked with global automotive brands as well as small and medium-sized businesses in Greece, Europe, and in the US. Very impressive CV, Professor Vardikou. The stage is yours. We can't wait to hear your presentation.
Thank you so much, Poppy, for this introduction. I'm delighted to be here with you today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this event of York Festival of Ideas. Thank you so much for being here today. So my name is Chrysopigi Vardikou. I work at University of York Europe Campus City in Greece. So I've also been researching how people respond to marketing tactics online, and I run my own marketing company, as Poppy just said. Since this year's topic is place and space, today I will shed light on our online activity in digital spaces such as social media, and I will give some practical solutions on how to regain our digital freedom back. So for just a moment, I will take you on a journey. I want to tell you a story that is as old as time, but is happening right now, every single second, inside our pockets and our brains. So this is a story about a chimpanzee, a jungle, and an invisible cage. And of course, no, I'm not starting this presentation from the history of humankind. So once upon a time, we were all chimpanzees. We lived in a wild, chaotic jungle. So that is where our story begins. To survive back then, we had to be athletes of the mind. We had to climb if we wanted the sweetest fruit. We had to sweat. We had to use our own muscles and our own judgment to decide which vine was strong enough to hold us. We were exhausted, of course, but we were sovereign because we made our own choices back then. And then the world changed. So the architects arrived and they saw how hard we were working and offered us a deal. They built a digital fruit wall, let's call it digital fruit wall. So suddenly the jungle's chaos was gone. The wall was beautiful, it was glowing, it was convenient, and we didn't have to climb anymore. The fruit was right there, presented at eye level. It felt like a gift to us. So we became what psychologists call cognitive misers, and then we stopped swinging through the trees. But soon, the wall started to change. The architects realized they could control our hunger. They started nudging us. They didn't take the fruit away, but they made the sour berries glow more than the sweet bananas that we want so hard. They guided us through mechanisms that are known to work. For example, they used social proof, hanging signs that said, oh, 99 of other teams love these berries. They used scarcity, with flashing red lights screaming, only 2 berries left, 10 seconds remaining, things like that. So at first, everything was so easy for us. It felt so comfortable having access to all this fruit without much effort. But the problem was that deep inside our chimpanzee brains, little by little, a tiny alarm went off. And that alarm was what we call psychological reactance. So when we had too much of this easy-to-reach fruit, we started to feel that wall pushing us. We felt our freedom being squeezed, and the wall wasn't a tool anymore. It was like a cage. So the constant shouting, the fake timers, and the aggressive buy now commands or buttons made us react. And we didn't want the fruit anymore. We wanted our freedom back, and we tried to regain it. I will pause now. I know that we all want a happy end here. I also want to tell you that the story ends with a chimpanzee free. Before that happy ending, though, there is a slight turn in the story, and actually this is, let's call it an alternative plot. So first, indeed, we tried to gain our freedom back, and after a while, we realized that there were no fruit on the trees, and we only had access to digital walls. There were dozens of them around us, but they all felt exactly the same. And at the same time, finding fruit on the trees was more difficult than ever, and some of us didn't even remember how to climb. So we became resigned. We felt that the jungle was no longer ours. So I'm sure this short story rang a bell to you, or actually many bells, probably. So that chaotic jungle is actually the chaotic world of information we live in. And this is how our digital experience looks like at the moment. So the truth is that human mental capacity is finite. And when we are bombarded by targeted ads and intrusive notifications, it places a load on our brain that overloads our memory, our working memory. And this is why we are digitally burnt out, or as researchers call this, cognitively exhausted. So when your cognitive resources are fully depleted, you enter a psychological state of what we call ad fatigue or burnout, algorithmic burnout. So this state is characterized by emotional exhaustion, by irritation, and also by profound boredom. So surprisingly, getting completely burnt out by too many ads doesn't make you actively fight back. Here's what actually happens. One, you zone out. You just disengage, you scroll past like a zombie. Second, being tired of ads only leads to resistance indirectly. So when the noise gets to be too much, it eventually forces the brain to put up its guard. To survive the clutter, you start leaning heavily on your inner defenses. So what we call the ad literacy, knowing that we are being manipulated by ads, and relevance checking, when we ask, do I actually care about this? So finally, if the process to resist is very, very hard, then sometimes we stop reflecting altogether and we accept the status quo according to Vakas and Kadri, if I pronounce the names correctly. So in my opinion, this is a very dangerous situation for our free will. So artificial intelligence systems now continuously learn behavioral patterns of users to predict and to shape human choices. And this highly personalized and data-driven influence often operates invisibly, risking the erosion of conscious choice. Let me show you the traps this involves. So trap one. So now in social media, the goal is already predetermined by the algorithm, which of course doesn't care about the decision-making rights of the users. So this may lead to people exercising decisions that do not align with our personal values and beliefs. Let's go to the second trap. So the other catch with artificial intelligence in social media is the use of generative AI for picture and video creation. So ancient Greeks were saying that persuasion has no other temple than speech, and its altar is in human nature. So the speech was the tool for persuasion back then. But now we can be persuaded with other forms of communication, not only speech and text, but also pictures and videos. And trap 3, because social media platforms and algorithmic streams have replaced traditional media, so these platforms actually control how we acquire knowledge. And of course, they threaten critical thinking, first by facilitating the spread of misinformation, of like conspiracy theories and all this stuff. And second, by over-standardizing content. What I mean by that, and simply put, it's that in social media, we live in bubbles and we see only the content that the algorithm already knows that we will engage with, or from people we engage with. But of course, this doesn't allow our critical thinking to evolve if we only see content similar to our point of view. So we oppose persuasion through two primary psychological mechanisms, persuasion knowledge and psychological reactance, they are called. So the first means that as we become more and more digitally mature, we develop a mental shield over time. And for example, when you interact with an app or an online advertisement, your brain constantly asks, what is the marketer's motive here? So the shift happens the moment you recognize a tactic. For example, when realizing that the countdown timer is fake, your brain shifts that moment from casually enjoying the content to critically evaluating the motive behind the content. And once persuasion knowledge is activated, trust detaches and we are skeptic. We don't believe what we see. So let's see the second one, psychological reactance. What happens next is that if a persuasion attempt feels too aggressive or too restrictive, pushy, and so on and so forth, the human brain will perceive it as a threat to its free will. To restore this feeling of freedom, we do the exact opposite of what we are told, or we simply decide that the brand is untrustworthy and annoying. Okay, so let's see what data shows on the moments we choose to surrender. So the data shows that human surrender is rarely a peaceful agreement. So it is a forced white flag that is raised due to tactical exhaustion. So let's see two cases. First, when you give people too many choices, our brains lock up. So instead of picking the best option, we get overwhelmed, we freeze, we walk away without buying anything, and this is called information overload. Let's see also the second. So when faced with an opaque system, the brain calculates that the energy required to fight, for example, to read the terms, to change the settings, the privacy settings of the app. So this energy outweighs the perceived likelihood of successfully protecting ourselves. So the user surrenders not because we don't care, but actually because we feel defeated before we even start. The same applies also to AI platforms. So there is research that shows that because AI tools are being aggressively normalized in workplaces and in schools, data shows that non-use is becoming very, very difficult. So users, we feel that we must surrender our data to remain productive or to remain competitive in some cases. So in my research, I try to find which persuasion tactics work across generations in the context of social media advertisements and email marketing campaigns. So what I did was that I created the same ad with two options, a very, very simple experiment. One without an ads, the other with an ads. So in some cases, the nudge was that an expert was talking about the product, and in other cases, there was an urgency text, for example, that the offer would end soon. And I tested multiple versions of text, some very assertive and others that were very subtle. So I will quickly show an example of such an experiment. So in this instance, both versions of the advertisement had the goal of pushing the consumer to buy the offer now. Text is in Greek, I'm sorry, but I translated the main part with the nudge in English above the image. So version A was more generic, I would say subtle. Version B had a specific deadline to emphasize urgency here. So I will stop here and I will let you guess where people clicked more, on which ad people clicked more. So if you said that they clicked more on the subtle version, you would be right. So they resisted to the assertive one. So actually, this is why today's presentation is called Subtle is the New Loud. What I found overall from all my experiments, and I ran more than 35 of them, was that people were showing psychological reactance when overly pushed. And how did I know that? They did not click on those advertisements with the nudges. So when I used the subtle messaging to gently push them, then reactance was decreased and people were clicking more on the advertisement. And this effect was mostly valid across generations, but it was very, very strong among people above 55 years old and in some of the experiments above 65 years old, which means probably that older people probably have higher reactance. However, a very interesting finding from my own study again was when I tested social proof. For example, when we used reviews or opinions from other people inside the advertisement again. In this case only, younger people and senior people, so Generation Z and boomers, were positively reacting to that tactic. So this probably has to do with the generation and their focus on relationships, but of course this has to be researched more because this is only an assumption. So we assume older consumers just reject the digital world, but my research shows something fascinating, I think, that the veteran chimpanzee, the baby boomer, actually likes the crowd. And if the fruit wall shows that 500 other chimps safely ate the banana, they trust it. But the moment the wall tries to use urgency, like flashing a clock saying, eat in 10 seconds, 10 seconds, and lose it, or authority saying, the chief of the jungle commands you to eat this, the veteran chimp completely rebels and they experience immediate psychological reactance. They will not be hurted and they will not be harassed with marketing tactics. Now, in my research, I haven't explored why this happens, but given the previous discussion, maybe, just maybe, the veteran chimpanzees simply remember how it feels to be free. And the next generation of chimpanzees who were digital natives, so younger people in our case, probably don't remember how to feel free. And this is, of course, a generalization. It has to be tested even more. Another fascinating, interesting finding from my experiments. So I ran experiments with nudges in social media advertisements, and then I ran them on email marketing campaigns. Almost the same texts were used, and I wanted to see if users would prefer the assertive methods or the subtle versions. Again, while the result in some cases was similar, and while users preferred the subtle versions in email marketing, in this case, users did not push back so much when we had the strong nudges. So an explanation of this is that because email marketing campaigns come from a known source, a company where they had given the data and purchased from probably a couple of times, the brand was more trusted compared to the social media advertisements that are shown, of course, to general audience, new people that are not familiar with the brand. Of course, this also has to be tested more. So the bottom line is that we are still climbers, and this is probably the secret that architects forgot, or at least this is how I want to think about it. We still have psychological reactance. What we need is to know how to apply it, especially when we are exhausted, and I know that we are all exhausted, digitally speaking. So again, The question remaining is, can we reclaim our free will in social media, and how? And I will share some tactics. Of course, I warn you, they are not easy. So one solution, the general solution actually, is called consumer autonomy in digital context, and this is what we are discussing today. So let's go to the practical part on what we as users can do. So probably you have already noticed that nowadays it's very, very easy to opt into tracking or hidden subscriptions, but then it's exhausting to opt out. So the first thing is you need to assume every preset option on a platform is optimized for the platform's sake, for the platform's financial benefit, not yours. Take the extra time to navigate into privacy menus to disable automated sharing, default tracking, and all this stuff. Second thing, to turn off the autoplay features on videos. And I assume many of you are wondering why autoplay. So on video and social media platforms, the autoplay, what it's doing is that it leverages immediate behavioral triggers. And this is how they can exploit our attention and trap us, if I can use the word trap. So it puts us in loops. Another thing is that we need to engage with conscious agency. So if we maintain a strong sense of personal agency, the algorithm recommendations are more likely to trigger psychological reactance. And we need to channel these reactants actively. And we do this by disregarding the curated feeds. So when we see hyper-personalized content, when we enter platforms and we say, oh, I just thought about this. How came that I see this video? All this stuff. We need to move beyond this curated content. And of course, to do manual searches for content instead. So the advice here is search instead of consume content in social media. And the fourth practical thing here, reset your algorithmic profile. And you may do periodical clear outs to your watch histories, to the cookies, to the ad identifiers. And of course, we do that to prevent the algorithm from mapping our psychological profile, our vulnerabilities, and then also to create localized persuasion bubbles, the ones we were talking about before. I know that it's not as easy as it sounds. I have tried this like 1 year ago, and there is a big discussion here because the algorithm, it will relearn again our habits and our profile very, very soon. So maybe the most important step, though, is to interrogate the emotional reactions that we have. So to have self-awareness. And research studies have shown that users who possess healthy self-regulation skills and a strong awareness of persuasive tactics on social media are much better equipped to critically distance themselves from targeted ads. So my advice is be aware of these nudges and flag false scarcity, flag false urgency, or assume that they are all false when we see them. So when we see banners like only one item left or 2 hours left, countdown timers and things like that, consciously label them as choice architecture designed to induce anxiety and designed to bypass our rational filters. And also, before acting on compelling online health claim or targeted ads on social media or anywhere else, ask yourself if your decision is based on a genuine understanding of the facts, or if an interface is leveraging emotional resonance to manufacture our consent. This is especially important when we are talking about e-commerce settings, when a click means that we spend our precious money. Okay, and don't get me wrong here. I don't mean like an idealized view of human autonomy. This is not possible, of course. We are, as humans, we are dependent on the context. We cannot live without social media although I know more and more people, and especially young people, that are deleting their social media accounts and they are moving from a smartphone to like a phone with buttons. But what I'm saying here is to try to regain the control, at least in some effect, and be aware of our reactions and of the platforms, and to make choices instead of reacting to what the platform is pushing us to do. And most researchers focus on how the algorithm should change or how regulations should force the algorithm to change. And I agree with all of this about ethical building of AI systems, but I feel that it's not possible. So this is why we are discussing what we can do as users. Apparently not much, but still, this is what we can do. So in order to have freedom of choice, we need to give ourselves choices, and to be, first of all, self-aware. So if we have some business owners and marketeers among us, here's the bottom line for brands. As technology advances, we need human-centered persuasion, where AI will be guided by empathy, moral responsibility, and the responsibility is to uplift society and not to exploit it. And of course, marketeers should go from models that aim to maximize user engagement and clicks, as in my research, and obviously with assertive and with manipulative tactics toward ethical personalization of content. And this, of course, includes using behavioral signals to capture real-time user fatigue, automatically triggering dynamic frequency capping, cooldown periods, or light informational formats, not heavy videos with very quick movement and things that grab attention. The bottom line here is that the mastery of influence is not about controlling others, but it's about understanding human nature and about communicating with integrity in an increasingly hyper-connected world. So thank you very, very much for being here with us today. I really appreciate you being here, and I can't wait for your questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Vardikou, for the very interesting and insightful presentation. If you have any questions, you can write on the Q&A box. Maybe I can start by asking you some questions. I have some questions for you,
I was
if I
waiting
may.
for your questions.
Okay, my questions have to do are more, let's say, practical for some people. You are a professor at the University of York, and you have worked many years as a freelancer, according to your CV. What kind of advice will you give, firstly, to the students, because you are a professor, and secondly, for the people who want to be to work as freelancers? What
To
kind of
work as
advice
marketeers.
or comments or suggestions will you give to them?
Thank you for this question, because this allows me to say that it was a very interesting finding and very optimistic finding in my research when I noticed that people did not react to the ads as I expected. So this means that as we become more and more mature, digitally speaking, we started to recognize this manipulation, which also means that as we become more and more digitally mature, we can recognize, or at least this is what I want to say, we can recognize the ethical brands, the brands that are not pushing us, the brands that are slower in their social media presence, not with all these fancy pop-ups and very quick things that you cannot have like a second to think about. So I think, and I hope that we become more aware of what an ethical brand, digitally speaking, means. So for marketeers, we need to do our job ethically. And this is not just a buzzword, something that we are used to say, or theoretical. This is very practical. It has to do with choices we do as marketeers. The first thing we need to do, which is also by the law, is that we need to mention to our privacy settings what we are going to do with your data. If we do any profiling, especially things that cannot be easily recognized by users. So there are some tactics out there that we can use while we run ads on social media as marketeers that people are not aware of sometimes on how the algorithm is working. So this is where we should be really transparent, even if it's not, let's say, for our benefit. Because
Yes.
in the end, it will be on our benefit, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is something very important. You said something very important, and because I'm a neuropsychologist, neuropsychology says that the right hemisphere is responsible for how we perceive pictures and images. And usually, I come across with a research saying that the right hemisphere is responsible for how we perceive ads, and we tend to be vulnerable because it analyzes images and things like that.
But also
Very
we develop what is called banner blindness. So as we see the ads over time, we instantly recognize that this is an ad.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Do you believe, I mean, ads can be useful for the people who work in the industry because ads mean money. Do you believe that maybe there is another way of using these ads? Because you completed the cognitive psychology program. Do you think that psychology can help in the direction of maybe we can use ads more productive, let's say?
Well, I like to think that ads are also very useful for the users, not only for the marketeers and the brands. Of course, they bring profit to the brand, but they are also useful to the people because suddenly a person sees personalized content of what they need. The problem is when we overdo it with personalization and when we are pushing content that leads probably to over consuming things, to hedonic purchases in some cases. Um, so this is how I like to think about ads because, of course, I'm biased. I'm in the market, so I like to think that what I'm doing has an impact on users. But the truth is that if we want to be truly ethical, what we can do is when we use nudges like the ones I described for scarcity, for urgency, for authority, they have to be real. And this has to do with the mere concept of nudging, because nudging means that we show a default option to the user, but we don't pose a threat to their freedom. And
Mm-hmm.
also my research, what it showed was that indeed, when people don't want to do something, you cannot nudge them to do it. You can only nudge them when they already want to do something and they need that slight nudge.
Mm-hmm. And as far as I know, there is a different section that is called psychology of color. Maybe I don't want to say science, but colors play a very important role, and psychology of color plays important role in arts as well.
Yes, there is a whole, let's say, science behind this, and also movement, where to put the buttons, and all this stuff. So, I mean, when you design interfaces like websites or e-shops or even ads or email marketing campaigns, you always, as a marketer, you always have to do a choice. When you make a choice, I mean that you need to put the button somewhere. So this is
Mm-hmm.
what it's all about. But at least do it ethically, do it transparently, don't try to deceive the user.
Yes, this is something very important. You said something very important regarding ethics. We have a question. The question says, what do you think about algorithms in relation to young people and the move in New Zealand to ban under 16s from social media?
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that this is a move in New Zealand, but I'm very happy to hear about this. This is also something that is happening at the moment here in Greece. I'm not sure about other countries. There is a debate about that, so I can share my personal opinion, of course. My personal opinion is that um it's a good action, and I'm not an expert on this. Maybe, Calliope, you are an expert on this better than, and you can explain better than I can do. But my point of view here is that because young people, especially people under 13, are not have not trained their mental capacities, have not reached their full cognitive potential, let's say, they are still developing their brains. And because, of course, they want to be on social media, to be with their peers is something very important for this generation. Um, this is a good thing to do because we try to protect them, let's say, at least for some years. On the other hand, of course, there is the debate. There are people saying that this will lead to negative consequences, and when you ban something, probably you will have like many reactions and they will create other accounts. So my point of view is that it's a good step. I mean, I also have a child, she's 9 years old, and I also don't let her use social media at this point. And I will not give her a smartphone until she's at least 13 to 15. We'll
Mm,
see. We'll see. I
yes,
don't know.
as a psychologist, I would say that boundaries are very important. And to set boundaries, this does not mean that we don't love our family members, but it's very important. The boundaries help them grow and be independent. So I think this is a way of proceeding with things. We have
And,
another question.
and
Uh,
children
s-
also need the boundaries.
yes. Should we consider all online activity through a marketing lens?
Oh, excellent question. Not necessarily, because there are some closed, let's say, environments where, of course, discussions happen. We can meet with people without ads, without our data being collected for marketing purposes. But we need to select them. So this is a conscious choice that we need to make. It's not easy. It's not right in front of us as in social media. It does not send us notifications all the time to trigger us visit the app again and again. So there are digital spaces where we can be safe, if I can use the term safe, but we need to make a conscious choice again to find them, to find, let's say, communities, digital communities that are close to our interests and to participate with them.
So finding the proper choice is always something hard, but we need to do it.
True.
We have a comment. I think it's a comment. This has been fascinating and really helpful talk. Of all the things you've talked about, what would you say is the most important thing you can do to protect your free will in relation to social media?
Again, an excellent question. I will tell you what I'm doing. And I know that I work on social media, I create ads, but what I'm doing as a user, especially because I notice, especially because I'm a heavy user of social media in some days for my job, what I do is that I quit social media in my free time. I try not to use them, only use them for work, not use them when I'm with my kid, not use them when I travel. Of course, I don't manage to do it all the time, but this is what I'm doing, and in the end of the day, I'm happy when I see that, oh, I haven't opened TikTok for the past 6 days. I'm very happy when I notice that I did it.
Mm-hmm. It's a digital detox, let's
Exactly.
say.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's
I used to delete some of the apps, but I can no longer do it because of my job. So what I do is I refrain from them.
good to have a program to say that I will deal with social media from this time until this time in order to keep a program and to not exceed from this program.
True, true. This helps very much, and I'm glad you mentioned this. So sometimes indeed I work with slots, and I say that I have like a 30-minute slot. Or when I work, sometimes I put my phone in another room. This is an advice I took from a famous podcast and influencer here in Greece, Phyllis Gavrilidou. So put your phone in another room so that you are not distracted and you are not depleting your cognitive resources.
Exactly, exactly. It's good to have a schedule. So, thank you very much, Dr. Vardikou. It was very insightful and inspiring presentation. Thank you very much. It was really awesome, your presentation.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
watching.